Hi, I am Yvonne Pepin-Wakefield, and I write under the authorship of Yvonne Wakefield. And I'm going to introduce you to the 3 books I wrote about my life in a log cabin I built when I was age 18. Babe in the Woods, Building a Life, One Log at a Time is the first book. I will introduce you into this journey of the series of 3 books. When everybody said, why don't you just write one book about it? This story is too long and it's too involved. So tonight we will start with the first episode of Babe in the Woods, Building a Life, One Log at a Time, Book 1. This is all based on truth. When I was 18, I left Minnesota, went to Oregon with a bow saw I bought from a garage sale and a book on how to build a log cabin, and proceeded to saw down the first tree on the property. I had never sawed down a tree before, and when it fell the opposite way, I knew I needed help. Follow me on the story. So, the epilogue, a note from the author. This story is about my relationship with woodsy things in a place of peace and quiet, beauty and repose, a mountainside in Oregon where I healed from a past that could have killed me had I not learned how to use an axe and a chainsaw. All of the places and characters and events depicted in this work of nonfiction are real. Some names have been changed to protect some identities, characteristics, and details of the living or the dead. The events are portrayed to the best of my recollection. Dialogue is drawn directly from my personal reference material, like dozens and dozens of handwritten journals, and published excerpts from these journals. This book is intended solely for entertainment. I am not, nor is the publisher, offering it as a how-to or instructional resource. I'm lucky I lived through building a log cabin to tell the story. Chapter 1, What to Call Home. Now you got to remember I'm here at age 14 writing this. On the lower berth of the maple bunk bed, my younger sister sobs and bursts and squirts. I do not reach down in the dark, feel for her hand, pat it and say, there, everything will be all right. Our father is dead, our mother has just died, and our older brother is holding hands with Evel Knievel in the next room. On the upper bunk, I lie saucer-eyed as the yellow Tweety bird sheets wrap around me. A 400 thread count cartoon cocoon I twist around my neck, choking back my own tears. If I can just make it through this night, the next day, the next month, when I'm old enough, I'll adopt a kitten, buy a case of cold duck, and build a log cabin from trees on a mountain somewhere. Inside this cabin, I will write poetry and make art, sip the sparkling wine, pet the cat, and there, everything will be all right. Given all the grieving going on around me now, nothing rhymes. I forget animal dander turns me blue-lipped and wheezy. I am only 14, and it will be years before I'm old enough to buy booze. A pine branch jacks open the paperback book, its pages flecked with snow and needles. Sweat drips off my forehead, freezes on the illustration I'm trying to follow to the T. I am 18 years old, calf-deep in snow, on an 80-acre mountainside I own, sawing into a tree, trying to build a home I lost 4 years ago. There is no cat, no bubbly, and the lyrics written in frosty breath are really guttural sounds that rhyme with ugh, God, itch. A book on how to build a log cabin is propped in the snow. Long hair falls in front of my eyes, and I brush it back with my mitten each time I bend to study ink drawings and diagrams, sequencing the angles of the upper and undercut of the tree I'm trying to saw. I've been studying these pages for nearly an hour. All I've really learned when it's so cold that snow won't melt is how easy it is to sweat through layers of flannel and wool, and what a bitch it is to saw down one goddamn tree. I swear, Each time I lean into the bow saw, I can hear that poor tree scream, sharp as the steel I yield. Metal so cold, one lick of it and my tongue would be stuck until spring. Further intimacy with pitted bow saw teeth, though, is absolutely the last thing on my mind as I concentrate on cutting through rough, pitchy bark and slicing clean through cadmium that's as pure and creamy as the inside of my thigh. Between the give and take of the blade, the bleed of pitch, I cross-reference the book. Judging by the diagram, the upper and undercup have a ways to go before they meet in a textbook V, which leads me to think I should ditch vegetarian and become a breatharian, because I swear really, I can feel that tree's tortured screams, sure as any living thing being sliced alive. Maybe progress is slow because the bow saw is dull. It was cheap, after all. 50 cents at a flea market in a Minnesota city, so I can read about how to cut trees to build a log cabin in the Oregon wilderness. More likely it's me, a clueless, stringy-haired, 100-pound, baby-faced teenager fresh out of braces. I set the saw next to the book and stick my finger into a pool of pitch, then spread it like honey along the cut, wishing it was paint and I could simply create an image of that tree falling, and it would. If there were another book, I'd reference it. If another tool, I'd use it. But I'm stuck with what's on hand, and that wounded tree continues to stand. Maybe it's true, what they said back then in Minnesota, that I'm a damn fool with my head in the clouds. My experience with any type of tool is limited to the last one I held, a ball-peen hammer with a mind of its own. Before I became an orphan, standing alone in snow and swearing at a wounded tree, I lived in Los Gatos, California, in a new brick-built, split-level ranch house as happily as a child with 2 siblings and 2 parents could be. Until one day, a fisherman discovered my father in a boat beached on the shore of a pocket lake. He was siphoning gasoline from an Army Green Johnson 5-horse outboard motor and unpurposely swallowing what he siphoned. The fisherman stopped my father's drinking. My father's second suicide attempt was also interrupted by a stranger. This time it was a hiker happening by a stump where my father sat, head bowed, tight-lipped, the barrel of a loaded revolver in his mouth. The hiker stopped my father's trigger finger. After one more final suicide attempt and failed suicide attempt, my father died in the hospital where he was sent to be cured from trying to kill himself. He was flown back to the land where he was born, where his body would be buried, side by side in passenger seats on another flight were his new widow and her 8, 9, and 10-year-old children. We would touch down in the land of sky-blue waters and drive to our new house in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, where there were birch trees and pine trees in the backyard rather than the citrus bushes we picked as we were children in a city named after cats. The idea of building and living alone in a log cabin was born the night my mother died, 5 years after my father was buried. I was 14 years old when orphans stamped my fate, and my only experience with logs came from a box with Lincoln printed on the cardboard outside. The details of how I would begin to realize this vision were at that time as solid as footings poured from ice cream in July. I broke bones the first time I used a hammer, and my literary and artistic endeavors were limited to knock-knock jokes and dime store coloring books. Still, I hung on to the image of a log cabin to keep from drowning in despair as I white-knuckled through years defined by the kind of untold circumstances that put the likes of people like Bernie Madoff and Jerry Sandusky in jail. I hung on for 4 years until I was old enough to receive the inheritance my parents left behind. The day I turned 18, I signed a paper to cash in on some of their trust and then drove to Oregon, a place I'd read about only in library books. Now, standing in snow on an 80-acre mountainside I bought the summer before and sweating over a rusty bow saw while swearing at a tree, I think I should have kept that childish idea in my head. Instead of using my parents' money to finance a university degree as they intended, I bought land. Here I am graded solely by my wits and clearly failing 101. When the upper and undercut meet 3/4 of the way, remove the wedge and begin a back cut. That's what the book says. I glance up from the book, pull out the blade, wipe the sawdust-caked teeth clean, and resume sawing a V. My arms quiver. My neck and shoulders ache with application never before applied until, a lifetime later, the two cuts meet. Triumphantly, I boot the wedge and yell, "Timber!" for no reason other than to hear my voice of accomplishment. So far, the tree is not listening. Neither is the wood chunk, which remains unremoved by my kicking and hollering. In this case, the book says to insert a felling wedge into the V. I have purchased a metal one and packed it up the mountain just for that reason. I insert it, slam it with the butt of my axe 2, 3, 4 times, each time the steel report shattering my nerves. "Timber!" I mumble contritely. The tree doesn't budge. I hit the felling wedge again and again until it becomes stuck, and then kick it. My words rhyme with hit, 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 because now my toes hurt. I push and pry the metal with the axe butt until it wiggles like a loose tooth. When I wrangle it free, I am amazed a piece of heartwood also gives. I put my shoulder against the tree, push and yell, "Timber!" Again, the tree doesn't lean, even a bit. "God damn it, just fall, please," I add politely, my plea like my intention ignored. I sit on a windfall, worn out, defeated, head in my hands. I wish a hiker would pass by. Maybe I need a gun. In this event, the book suggests executing a back cut, which I get up and do, first with the axe, chopping, then slicing with a constipated bow saw until the heartwood is breached and the tree gives a sigh of release. Fir needles rain down in a dangerously improvised choreograph of elements not spelled out in the book beneath my knocking knees. The tree shimmers, shakes, creaks, groans, sways long, and then swoons in the opposite direction to what is written in the book now covered in needles and snow. Theory and application divorce in their first effort at intercourse, which naturally makes me yell, "What the fuck?" and not timber as the tree twists my way and then lunges off its stump. I stumble, jump, and fall backward. The bow saw jerks up and thwacks me in the forehead. The tree limbs, as thick as my arms and legs, bounce within inches of where I lie, now blanketed in evergreen boughs and snow. Infuriated by this textbook backlash, I stand, brush off debris, and blot my brow. Melted snow, united in a shotgun marriage with sweat, as well as the blood from the nick between my eyes, testifies I need tutoring to pass this test in falling. So, thank you for letting me tell you the beginning of this story of Babe in the Woods. If you're interested in what's to follow in the first book, the second book, and the third book, please follow my podcast and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm new at this, but we're going to get through it together.